Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you are doing well. Today we are here with our Saturday review from Game Week 2 of the FPL season. So if you have been enjoying the videos here on the channel, I would appreciate a subscription on the channel because it does help us to grow. We are going to kick it off with the Friday night review. Now I know it says Game Week 2 Saturday. It's because this is predominantly a Saturday review, but we have got our graphics today from Between the Post, and if you would like to get graphics like this to make some decisions about your team, then make sure you head over to Between the Post and get a bronze subscription from £10 a year, which is about $18 Australian for the full year subscription, which is what I'm using today. So who would have thought 5-1 to Chelsea? For us, it was Saturday morning. For everybody in the UK, it was Friday night. Now, obviously, the big news from this game was about Cole Palmer. So that does influence the way that Chelsea play. So you can see from the graphic on screen that you've got Estevao there on the right wing. And what I love from these graphics are about the patterns of play that you can see. So, looking at the Chelsea graphic first, you can see this Estevao, Gusto, Chalobah triangle. So you can see, and then on the left-hand side for West Ham. So you've got to kind of look at it from both sides. So anything happening on the right-hand side for Chelsea is what's happening on the left-hand side for West Ham. So obviously there's this huge gap between Gyokeres and Diouf, and that's where Gusto and Estevao have been looking to work in. Then you've got Pedro Neto coming in from that left wing, really sitting up with Liam Delap. And then you've got João Pedro coming from these deeper positions in order to support the attack. So obviously, with no Cole Palmer, we don't fully know what's going to happen with this Chelsea attack moving forward because we haven't got news yet on Cole Palmer's groin injury. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But João Pedro, 15-pointer in this game, was absolutely incredible. Enzo Fernandez obviously got, some returns in this game as well. But, the corners for Chelsea was just where this game was won. West Ham were just dreadful. You can see their maps are all a bit all over the place. That's because they changed shape a few times, so it does look a little bit congested because they made so many changes. They went from a 3-back to a 4-back, back to a 3-back, all within the game. So the other thing you can see is the size of the circles make a big difference. So you can see the four players that were predominantly on the ball for Chelsea were Tosin, Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, and Marc Cucurella. So they were really trying to exploit West Ham's right-hand side. But I do like these constant triangles over on Chelsea's right-hand side for Gusto, Chalobah, and Estevao, who did actually look very good on the right. So my big takeaway from this game is what's Chelsea going to do now with Cole Palmer, because João Pedro in the 10 is a very, very solid option. We saw him play the full game, which was fantastic as well. He got his goal, he got 2 assists, and he really was a creative outlet for Chelsea. So maybe, Estevao's only an 18-year-old winger, so maybe it's something to think about that he could be somebody that doesn't start every game. Maybe they go back to Cole Palmer on the right, João Pedro in the 10, and Liam Delap up front. I think that gets probably most of their best players in their best roles, because even at Brighton, I thought João Pedro looked better in the 10 than he did up front. Quickly on West Ham, you can see where Jared Bowen's positioning is in this graph. So what the full story you don't get is Callum Wilson's positioning in the second half of this game as well. So obviously they changed shape and they sort of had Bowen and Wilson up front a little bit more. So it's probably not worth talking too much to what West Ham did because they just got beaten so badly. Diouf gets the assist on the Paqueta goal though, which is always nice. And Fulkrug, if you've got him, you probably need to look at moving him on. But I feel like that's all we can talk about from the Friday night game. So let's get into Saturday. And if you're enjoying this different type of video, make sure you smash a like on this as well. This is something I'm keen to do long term on a Sunday for you guys so that you've got some content over the weekend before we go live on Tuesday nights. This game was fantastic. I just thought that Tottenham were so good in this system. Everyone that I was with yesterday was saying Tottenham are definitely going to play a back 5. We've seen it against PSG. We've seen Thomas Frank do it at Brentford and it be super successful. And then when the team sheet dropped and it was clearly a back 4, I thought, what's going to happen here? I looked at the 3 in midfield of Sarr, Bentancur, and Paulinho and thought, well, it's actually a good midfield 3. How they're going to play, and they just played their 4-2-3-1. It's what they did against Burnley. Sarr in the 10. You can see the position maps here, but what is really interesting is look how dark the circles for Spurs are on the wings and through their wingers. Pedro Porro, Jed Spence, Kudus, Brennan Johnson, all heavily involved in the play. And it was obviously an idea to try and exploit Man City out wide. Again, the same thing. You don't get the full picture with no Ake on this graphic because we are lacking that. It doesn't have the subs. It's just the starting 11 players, which is a little bit annoying in games like this when you get an early sub. But, you know, the interesting thing you can notice, I don't think there's much really to talk about Spurs. I just thought they just looked really good. Haaland had a couple half chances, but he, other than that, wasn't super involved in the game. You know, he was dropping really deep at times in order to try and get involved. But with Tottenham, it was just get to the flanks, get in behind, get balls into the box. And that's how that first goal comes about. From Richarlison to Brennan Johnson, because Richarlison stretches the defence and Brennan Johnson makes a run to the back post. And then everyone's spoken about that second goal where Trafford makes a big error playing out from the back, which, you know, that happens when they play the way that they play. But what I want to notice here on the City side of things is the right-hand side. So you got Lewis inverting, you got Cherky from that 10 dropping in, and then you've even got Reinders, who was lined up alongside Nico Gonzalez. But as you can tell, you know, City have that box. They were obviously trying to exploit the left-hand side of Tottenham, which was Jed Spence and Mickey van der Ven. They were obviously trying to avoid the Pedro Porro, Christian Romero side. They were, you know, playing very heavily to the right and then trying to get balls across to Marmoush. And that would have all been happening once Ait-Nouri came off, because he actually was looking okay and he was overlapping quite well. He wasn't playing that third centre-back role. Man City were really going after that game early days before Ait-Nouri came off. But you can see Reinders there almost playing as a second number 10 alongside Ryan Cherky. So I know Man City obviously lost this game 2-0. I don't think if you're a Tierney Reinders owner that you need to panic, because he is getting into some really good areas. This was just a game where we were just saying last night that City just had all these half chances and they just weren't able to convert. So they just didn't look like they were going to score. It just, you know, looked like Tottenham were going to, you know, get the clean sheet. And this was the hardest game, you know, for Tottenham in this, you know, very nice run. And I was flirting, you know, having Romero and Pedro Porro in my defence. And bloody hell, I wish I did now, because you would have picked up, you know, 4 clean sheets worth of points between the two of them. But I'm very happy owning Pedro Porro. The yellow card was frustrating. Defensive contributions, I thought he was robbed of a few. But end of the day, I think Tottenham assets are going to be something that people are going to be targeting this week. And Pedro Porro on set pieces looks very, very good. Now, this is a game that I haven't seen a whole lot from, so I'm just talking you guys through what my key takeaways are now. Agbadou got his defensive contributions, and it is really interesting that he seems to be the link man in this whole back three system that they're playing under Vitor Pereira. So you can see that a lot of the ball, you know, defensively is coming through Agbadou. There's arrows going to Doherty and to Gomez, and then they look to distribute out from there. And it's a real interesting system because David Wolfe is their left wing back. So he could be someone, you know, now that the Wolves fixtures are turning, if they can, you know, start to get some attacking returns, could he be the Ait-Nouri 2.0 kind of option for Wolves, because he is, you know, as high as Strand-Larsen. So this is something where I want to watch the mini-match, because they did only lose this game 1-0 to Bournemouth as well. So it's not like they got battered. I want to see how involved he was, and I want to see the same for Truffert, because again, you can see how involved the two left backs are in this game. Now that's, you know, we kind of do see that from time to time, because if one side is dominating down the left, it means that, you know, that everyone's shifting across. So that then would have meant that there was space on Wolves' left-hand side, because everyone would have been on their right-hand side to defend Truffert, and then, you know, it just keeps happening that way. So from a Wolves perspective, you know, you'd be pretty frustrated if you owned Strand-Larsen, because you had him for Man City, he looked all right, and then you've got a blank from him here against Bournemouth. But then, you know, you look at the Bournemouth side of things, and this is a very, you know, typical 4-2-3-1 shape. Brooks on the right, Semenyo on the left, Tavernier in the 10, Adams and Scott with Truffert and Smith. You can see Adams sits, Truffert goes, you know, it's pretty simple analysis for Bournemouth. Again, clean sheet for them. They do have a very nice run as well. So, you know, Senesi got his DC points. I think Gyokeres did as well. So they're going to defend quite a lot, because their fullbacks are pushing into that midfield line. So, you know, you could easily look at a Senesi as an option if you needed a 4.5 million defender. But I am very keen to look at a Semenyo. We put him in our wildcard team as well this week. So I'm very, very keen for that. And if you are enjoying this video, make sure you smash a like. Sorry if I'm kind of like looking down. It's because my screen is here and the camera's up here. So bear with me on this one today, and let me know if you do have some feedback on this video. Now, one of the games that people are going to want to talk about quite a bit is this Brentford and Aston Villa game. Now, this is where it gets interesting because you look at the Brentford heat map and there's not a whole lot of passing, and that's because you can see quite clearly that Villa had the ball in this game. Brentford went 1-0 up. Dango Tara, who I think we're going to need to talk about him on Tuesday night, because we mentioned if he gets a move to a club where he plays week in and week out, could be an absolute steal at 6 million. He's an absolute, data beast. Hub absolutely love his numbers as well. And I think, him, Sharda, Damsgaard, and Igor Thiago, Brentford are going to be so reliant on those four, pretty much playing almost every game. They've got Fabio Cavallio, but other than that, they don't have a whole lot of other options. It is interesting, though, to look at their heat maps. You've got Yarmouk really dropping in to pick the ball up off the back four. And then you get Michael Coyote, who's more known for his overlapping ability, but he's sitting in to almost create a midfield three with Yarmouk, Jordan Henderson, and himself, which allows Damsgaard to really push through. And he had a chance where he just absolutely walked through the defence and then put the ball just wide of the right post. But then it also releases Lewis Potter. So what I was interested to see was that he's obviously listed as a defender on FPL, and Kevin Sharda's come back into the side and he's gone back to left wing back. So you probably lose a little bit of the appeal of having him in the side because he was playing on the left wing while Sharda was out. But we know that, when Brentford had Rico Henry up and firing in that, team that first came up from the Championship, we knew that their left-hand side was extremely attacking, and that's what I'm expecting to see this year from Brentford. Do I expect them to keep a lot of clean sheets? No. I think they're going to concede a lot of goals this year, so you probably don't want a defender from a team that's going to concede a lot of goals. In a world, could you move to a Dango Utara? If it was 5.5 million, I'd say 100% go and do it. I think 6 million makes it hard. But I do think he's going to be a very, very good option for Brentford this season, and we'll definitely talk about him on Tuesday. Another thing we're going to talk about on Tuesday a lot is this Aston Villa side, because the team hasn't changed a whole lot from last year, but for whatever reason, they are just very, very slow out the gates at the moment. Ollie Watkins, as an owner, is an extremely frustrating own as well, because there's just, Newcastle had an absolutely shocking pre-season. Brentford have just been shipping goals for fun. You got Kamara, Tielemans, Rogers, Digne, Cash, McGinn. There's enough quality in this side to be able to create opportunities. You can see Tielemans was extremely involved. Morgan Rogers had a big chance that was blocked by Coyote. And you just hope for a little bit more from Ollie Watkins. This Villa just didn't look very good. There's probably not a whole lot to say about this one. It's not like they had, heaps and heaps of chances and they were unlucky not to score. Brentford just defended really well, and I'm concerned. It doesn't mean I'm going to make changes just yet. If I don't have to make transfers, I won't bother about making transfers. Yeah, I want to try and roll up to 3 or 4 moves before I start, mixing pieces around. And we'll look at their fixtures ahead of game week 3. But I'm very, very much on the lookout for a striker. And there is another 9 million striker who's probably going to go up this week that we'll talk about in a little bit. But the other big talking point that I had this week was, did I take on the double Burnley defence? Now, I started Esteve and I've got Dubravka in my team. End of the day, I went with Sanchez because I did think West Ham's attack was going to struggle against Chelsea, and they did manage to get their goal. But end of the day, I only missed out on 3 points. So it's not the end of the world. But the interesting thing with Burnley is look at the positioning of Hannibal Majri as the 10, and then their fullbacks are really pushing on. And, that's Kyle Walker, inverting into a 3. And then you've got Brun Larsen as the right winger. But then you've got their left back there really pushing in. And you could see that Burnley were really trying to go down their left-hand side, which again makes sense because you've also got Sunderland, who are looking at getting down their left-hand side with Ronaldo and Dingra. So you can just sort of see the way that this game was played. It was extremely even. I haven't seen much of this game either, so I don't really want to comment too heavily. You can see Granit Xhaka, again, heavily involved, got the DC points, and I think he could be a really, really good enabler at 5 million, but I need to go back and have a look and see what was going on with set pieces. You can see Hume was holding his width quite wide as the right back. So they've got Ballard there, and then they've got Omar, and then you can kind of see Granit Xhaka's kind of doing that screening role for this side, and then it gets a little bit messy in the middle of the pitch. So just a few little interesting things to look at there. Nothing too crazy. I don't think we're going to be looking at attackers or defenders really from Burnley or Leeds. So let's move on to the last game of the Saturday fixtures. And what you should notice straight away is look at the size of the circles of Williams, Saliba, and Gabriel. You can just see that everything just kept going through them. Obviously, they were, in the driving seat for some time in this game. Leeds' positioning was extremely deep. as well, and they lose 5-0, and I just think, you could really see the quality of Arsenal in this game. But what is interesting is the positioning of Calafiori and Timber. So last year, one would invert and then the other one would overlap, where maybe it's because it was a dominance thing today and they were just so much better than Leeds that they could just defend in a two, and Leeds were pretty much only playing with Peru up front, and then they had their runners of Stack, Nonto and James going forward. But you can just see that Zubimendi and Rice were just sitting in front of Saliba and Gabriel, and they just sat in a box and they just played around and allowed Timber really to get beyond, that midfield line and really help contribute in the attack. He goes and scores 2 goals from set pieces, gets the assist for Bukayo Saka. I really like the positioning of Saka and Madueke, and it's going to look like Gyokeres is going to drop in and link up and then spin and go. So for like Gyokeres' goal, well, his first goal, I should say, the link-up play, him and Calafiori, he makes the run. Calafiori sends him through and away he goes, takes that first chance really well, and then he gets the penalty to finish off with as well. You got Martin Odegaard sitting there in that right pocket. You got Madueke coming in off that left wing. If that's Eze, and Eze sitting there, as an advanced attacking midfielder in this system, linking up with Zubimendi, Odegaard, Gyokeres, and Calafiori or Lewis Skelly on that left-hand side, then this is going to be an extremely dangerous Arsenal side, that are going to score a lot of goals, and I think we're going to want some of their attacking assets. Lots of people didn't have the Arsenal assets, and if you were brave enough to go Gyokeres over Watkins, and you absolutely cashed in on the points this week. I've seen a couple people with Jury and Timber in their side, and maybe at 5.5 million, he could be a lock at right back. I don't think Ben White takes that slot anytime soon from him, but you just know there's going to be rotation. Like Timber got a 24-pointer in 64 minutes or something this morning, so locked in the clean sheet, 3 attacking returns, 3 bonus, and looked extremely good. Only thing to be mindful of is the length of time Saka and Odegaard are going to be out for. It sounds like Saka's injury to hamstring again, so not ideal when he's had hamstring issues in the past. But again, Madueke probably just goes to the right wing, and Eze will come to the left wing against Liverpool, you would assume, this week. Leeds, again, I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about here other than I like Anton Stack. We spoke about him on Tuesday night as an option as well, and if he's pushing on beyond Peru, I think he could actually be still at 5 million. Defensive contributions, attacking threat, linking the play, bonus points. I just think he could be someone when Leeds' fixtures turn that could be a good option. So if you've enjoyed that review of the Saturday fixtures, then make sure you've smashed a huge thumbs up on the video. I would 100% appreciate it, because I love going into data and looking at the heat maps and the movement patterns of players and analysing that for fantasy. So if you'd like to see me continue these videos on a Sunday morning for you guys, then I'll get a good understanding of that through the likes and the interaction that you guys have on the video. Make sure you subscribe and get the bell on, because we are going to be live on Tuesday night again at 8 o'clock, as we always are, to talk through all things Game Week 2 and help you guys with Game Week 3, and I'll see you there.